that time of week once more for Muji and Dan to give you the comic store. It's time to open up those bags and boards, fans. Welcome to Get Your Pulls.
Welcome to Get Your Pulls, number 95. It's your pal the Muji.
It's Dan.
And returning after a long hiatus, it's the Todd.
Well, to be fair, the show's returning after a long hiatus. Took a little Get Your Pulls summer vacation there.
That is true. There's only been a couple of episodes I missed out on so far, so no harm done.
But we're all back together.
Yeah.
That's right.
Like
With a
friends.
triple decker for you this week.
Yes. 3 strong.
Yeah, we got tons of pulls. We would have 3 full weeks, but I didn't read all my comics, so I've got 2.5 full weeks. Y'all got...
Mine's a mishmash of random weeks.
We got a lot of stuff to talk about, so we'll jump into it.
Yeah.
HeroesCon. It was badass.
Yeah, it was the best con I've been to since Dragon Con in the early years before it got too fucking crowded. And Dragon Con's still awesome, and it's really not fair to compare them. They're apples to oranges, really, as far as what they offer. But like just as far as overall good times, all I'm basing it on, HeroesCon got the big double thumbs up this year.
Yeah, HeroesCon is a good con if you actually like comics, because no other con that I've ever heard of within driving distance really gives a shit about them. So, yeah, it's like most cons, like we got Neil Adams, and then we also have the person that played the fucking zombie number 6 in season 2, episode 9 of The Walking Dead. It's like, you remember the zombie that had the fucking patch on their arm? Like, fuck no. It's like, well, they're signing autographs for $35.
We made the trip from Chattanooga, Tennessee, all the way down to Charlotte, North Carolina. Just big thumbs up to them also on the way the con was ran. Got a lot of people in and out of there. It can turn into a clusterfuck. They didn't let it. They kept everything moving. There was plenty of space the way they had it set up still to walk around and see stuff even when it got crowded. Just a great experience overall. The cosplayers were top notch, and the writers and artists were all super friendly and down to earth. We'll definitely put some pictures up on the official Potty Humor Facebook page.
Nice.
Yeah, they had some cool... We were only there for one day, so we couldn't stay for any sort of panels or anything like that. They had, I guess, one panel a night, because, it's not... I mean, it's a big con. They said that this year was by far their biggest, which it was still in comparison. There was absolutely no point where you had trouble walking. There was, like, plenty of space. I hope it does good for them. I hope it doesn't grow too much, because it was just such a pleasant experience. They had, like, one panel a night. We left, and weren't paying attention the night that we were there, but... which apparently, I guess there actually is some sort of other room they have panels in, because they had one while we were there Saturday. We just were unaware of it. But,
was it the Kevin Eastman one?
Well, they had a couple panels. They had Kevin Eastman had a Ninja Turtles panel. They had a Marvel panel and a DC. I guess they had 4. They had a Marvel panel with all their Marvel people, a DC panel, and then they had a Sex Criminals themed panel that they also had.
Which they're both there,
cosplaying as John and Susie got engaged at the Sex Criminals panel, which Matt Fraction was pretty fucking elated about.
Yeah, and then apparently Chip Zdarsky tried to get married to Matt Fraction, but he said no. He already has a wife.
Shut down.
Yeah, but it was a great time. Everyone was nice, especially Zdarsky and Fraction. They were super cool, inviting. You can tell, you see they have like a big conference. Some of their books, like I know like Kelly Sue, like Captain Marvel has never sold that great, but you see 1 billion people cosplaying, and they talk about how they always have a great turnout. You can definitely tell like the reasons, because they were by far the nicest people like in the whole place.
Yeah, and that's not to shortchange anybody else, because nobody was rude. But
we had cool experiences with everybody, but they were like, hey, we're friends. Nice to meet you. You're my friend now. Like they were that way.
Me, so we're down. So let's just bullshit about whatever.
And Zdarsky had Duel the Con. We got sweet sketches. Got a Colossus sketch.
The sketches were awesome.
You got a sweet Happy Batman sketch. $20, where any other named guy at minimum was charging.
They were
like
both great sketches.
$90, $100. He was doing quick like $20 ones, which if he was charging $50, you would still been like, oh, this is the best deal of the con.
Yeah,
this is great. Do my Colossus impersonation for shooting the popped in pretty big.
I bet he appreciated that.
My little snowflake.
Yeah.
It's like he's here.
Yes. We met Jason Latour. He was awesome. He was, he's not pumped that Winter Soldier got canceled still, but he was awesome. And
As is to be expected.
Mark Waid was great. Mark Waid said that he's going to write Daredevil until they pry it out of his cold dead hand. So that's good news.
Yeah,
it is awesome.
He's knocking it out there.
Yeah, he was. And everybody we talked to too also said HeroesCon was their favorite con. Like absolutely everyone you brought it up to was like, this is every comic person's favorite con. It's like everybody hopes that they get the invite to come to HeroesCon because it's just about the comic books.
Yeah.
I mean, there was 2 cosplayers there that were kind of like famous cosplayers that one of them lives like in Atlanta, so it was like real close, for them. And there was one other came in. Everybody else.
Yeah, one of them was the Wonder Woman that we saw. That I was like, oh my god, that's the best Wonder Woman I've ever seen. Well, coming to find out, she was one of the professional cosplayers that they hired.
Yeah, I saw her, and then one of the girls from Heroes of Cosplay that lives in Atlanta was there.
Sweet.
And
dressed as Wasp.
Yeah,
nice.
And a great costume. Also, that's about the littlest person I've ever seen in my life. TV makes everybody seem like bigger than they are. Like she was always like, "Wow, this is like a little woman." But it was awesome. They had that, and then like the rest, it was just there was plenty of vendors there, but the rest it's just artists and fucking.
One thing about the artists too that was just so awesome. Even if you didn't spend a dime on a sketch, that bitch is $20.
Right.
Worth every penny of the $20 just to get to watch guys like Matteo Scalera and Assad Ribic.
Yeah.
And all these people, Ryan Stegman, like up close doing sketches.
Oh, Stegman was there, nice.
You can just
he
you can just
there,
pop your head in and just watch them. They don't care because they're just sitting at their table. They're in the zone, and people really aren't bothering them. So if you just want to kind of park up there and watch what they're doing, you can really be blown away.
That's the real hope. Is next year. This year was like the first con I ever went to that I was like wanted to go to. I tagged along to a couple Dragon Cons for a day and did whatever, which it was okay, but not really my thing. Like I just don't care that much. But this one I was pumped for, and had like a limited budget. Definitely like the plan is next year is to do the same as this year. Found like a bunch of great deals. Other than Zdarsky got 2 $20 sketches that I really loved and the $15 one. So you can find a lot of people trying to make a name for themselves like at these cons, like trying to meet writers and trying to get their books out there and stuff. They're trying, of course, doing the cheap sketches so that you remember them, so when they have a book come out, you'll buy it.
You get your money's worth.
But next year, definitely want to, save enough money to where I can go in there and pop down, because like Matteo Scalera had time. He's just sitting there, and you're like, well, it's like $150 to get a sketch, but you
gotta really want that.
It would be worth it. It would be totally worth it. I just have the money. But next year, hopefully going with double the cash, so I can at least go up to one of these, fucking balling guys. I mean, there's a ton of people. Scotty Young was there, who's been, he's like the most popular cover guy there is right now.
He's about to have that big Rocket Raccoon.
Rocket Raccoon.
Scotty Young's a chick.
That's all him.
That's a dude.
Oh, really?
It's a dude? Are you sure?
It's a dude.
Seems like a dude.
I'm very positive it's a dude.
I never saw him or her.
Yeah. There are plenty of people there. There's plenty of, the ladies there too were well represented with the art.
Nice.
Let's see, Rachel Deering was there who writes.
I've heard of her,
She writes, what's the book for EC Comics?
Oh, Creepy.
She does Creepy, and she put together and wrote a story in this really awesome Kickstarter that I was just too broke to invest in. But we'll buy the book eventually. I couldn't there because I know it has a $50 cover price.
Oh, wow.
It's like they're probably selling it for $50 at the con. I mean, you get it autographed and everything, so it's worth it. But I was just like too low on the budget at the time to get it. But I think it's like $30 cheap graphic novels. But it's called, I think it's called In the Dark. But it's this really awesome anthology with like a ton of people. It's got like James Tynion. I think Cullen Bunn, Snyder's in it. A bunch of people wrote, I think he did the forward, but a bunch of people wrote just short horror stories for the book. And, it's like a couple hundred pages of short anthology horror. And she had that there selling it, and so that was awesome. I think Ming Doyle was there.
You had to meet James Tynion. You didn't talk about that.
Got to meet James Tynion.
Oh,
he was cool. He was nice. He was eating. I felt a little bad. I walked up to him, had him sign. Autographs were free for everyone. Not one person charged for autographs. I know.
Some asked you to donate to the Hero Initiative.
Some people had the Hero Initiative.
Comic book league.
Like, if
That's
you
a
could,
good way to do it.
And even if you could, because like even Zdarsky had like a pile there to donate for signing, but didn't like ask anyone to. It was just I know some people have a limit. I'd read that. Due to like comic stores, like kind of like loading people with comics, get them signed for them, stuff like that. I know that a lot of comic artists now have set a limit at either like 5 or 10 books. Like anything after that, they want you to pay $1 each.
And then everybody gets
donate
in
it
there
to charity. Yeah, because it's really not fair. Because I've heard about a bunch of cons where like you'll go to a con and the first 10 people online have like 30 books.
Well,
and it turns out
I have your whole run here.
They're all going back to the comic book store to be sold. So instead of fans getting them, the comic shops, are like loading people with books to sign. So that makes sense. But nobody asked for any money to sign, so that was awesome.
That's a pretty fair way
We
to do
still
it.
feel the need, like once you get go up, get Latour's autograph, bought a sketchbook for $10, which is awesome, totally worth it.
Sweet.
Same with Tinian, he was selling scripts of Batman Eternal, so
Yeah.
he was eating lunch, so I walked up and he was like taking a bite, and I was like, kind of looked at him, I was like, oh, and he was like, hey man, what's up, I was like, oh, sorry to interrupt you eating, but he's eating at his fucking table, so what are you going to do?
Well, it's a cool relic to have, like,
Yeah,
I always enjoy reading the script.
He signed my book, and I was like,
They're
thanks
available,
man,
yeah.
and I put it down, and I saw he had the scripts, because I already had the book, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, you got scripts, I'll take one. It's $15, so I was like, oh, that's a little more than I thought it'd be, but...
Right.
Yeah, but it was still cool, and he signed it, so it's badass. Got a Batman Eternal #1 script signed by the guy that did it, so that's
Nice.
great. But yeah, we met a bunch of people. Like I said, met a bunch of like just random indie people that really don't have anything out, like either self-publishing comics and stuff, but are really talented, so it's cool to see some people that, will probably get some sort of work in the future.
And for quality of attendee, I have to say, like, the most friendly people at HeroesCon. Like, the guests were all cool, like, they didn't cut in line, like, there weren't a bunch of assholes.
There were no dicks,
not
like,
a bunch of
pushing,
neckbeards.
there's nobody, like, pushing you to try to get through line, like, any line you're in, you can make conversation. Whoever was in front of you or behind you, it's people that like comics, so you could bring up something, and they would talk to you about comics and have a conversation with you about something.
That's pretty sweet.
While you're standing in line, and they all read, like anybody. You're in the line for the Matt Fraction, there's people sitting around
They're
going,
gonna know.
hey, you guys, it's the Sex Criminals line, but you guys read Hawkeye? Yeah, blah, 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 and you talk about it, so it was definitely a time where you, like, felt like you were with your people. Like, it was definitely the day after, had severe post-con hangover, because it's like, man, it's going to be a while before there's that many of us together, just reveling in the whatever.
Yeah, I'd say the only disappointment was the cancellation of Rick Remender, but he canceled all of his cons. So.
Which it turns out, too, that was more of like a HeroesCon, like, bluff, because apparently he had said, like, I guess his agent just didn't get with them. He had said way earlier in the year that he was canceling all of his con appearances. They started announcing for next year. I don't know if they've announced yet, but I know last year, the weekend after, they went ahead and started announcing, like, they'll start now announcing people for next year.
Yeah.
And they changed it up some good, too, because I know that they had Jason Aaron last year. Remender apparently been there a bunch before, but not for 4 or 5 years, but I think he said he's going to try to hit everywhere he missed, so hopefully next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, if you live...
He's a busy guy.
We're 6 hours away, but if you live anywhere in the southeast within driving distance, for your money, from the ticket price to the price of, like, items inside to just the experience, it is so worth it.
Oh, yeah.
I've paid more than $20 to go to a fucking shitty horror con in town that had, like, 3 horror people just to get, like, an autograph. Like, this was 100%, like, worth it, and, I'm really pumped for next year. So, HeroesCon gets the highest recommendation possible.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a long day, one long day. We spent about 12 hours in the car. That was an old-fashioned bro road trip. We hit about all the old NWA Mid-Atlantic territory, all the big towns we at least passed through.
Went through the most redneck gas station I've been in a while. Like
It was the gas station on Maximum Overdrive. I'm like 9,000% sure.
I was wearing a Fat Man on Batman shirt, and somebody gave me the look at my face, and they're like, where did you come from? I was like, it's a Batman shirt. Batman shirts freak y'all out.
Hey, at least you didn't have a fucking pink beard. I think that was probably why they were eyeballing more.
That's
creepier. Shirt that just says Fat Man on it.
Like I said, completely great time. We'll move on to a couple other things. A couple quick news items. We'll just go over real quick. A couple of rumors that apparently are rumors. Bleeding Cool announced like the possibility that they were going to cancel all the X-Men books. Brian Michael Bendis came out today and said that he's like, that's bullshit. He's like if word comes down that's happening. He's like, I'm not writing for Marvel anymore. And then Fraction was like, if Bendis he's like it's not happening. But he's like, where Bendis goes, I go. He's like, they're not gonna. They make too much money off the book. So it was just a random thought that they ran a story on, which all of a sudden became news. Other sites picked it up as like news. When they really ran it, obviously as a rumor, it's obviously just like clickbait.
It's obvious, yeah. I mean, he's so knocking it out of the park. Just on all new X-Men alone, like, you gotta say, that's not gonna happen.
No, but it was just more of that they were gonna cancel because they don't have the movie rights. The idea was that because Fantastic Four now, there's way more evidence that they've announced they're canceling Ultimate FF. And they said they're gonna cancel, there's the rumor they're canceling Fantastic Four. And there is like actually good information that Ike Pullman came down and said we're getting rid of this just because we don't want to give them free promotion.
Well, that's just one of those books they keep trying to retool. They're not going to cancel it, and there's not going to be.
No, I mean that's Fantastic Four was the beginning of the Marvel universe.
They're going to they might introduce a new creative team, new #1, whatever. It's not going to be just off the shelves because they feel jilted.
We always bring up the wrestling comparisons, but like in wrestling, there's an old saying: "It's how can I miss you if you won't go away?"
Yeah.
And Fantastic Four, if they're struggling, I don't want to see them canceled. I think that would be a bullshit move because they're of my favorites. Not to mention, as Muji said, the one of the founding things of the Marvel Universe, one of the bricks that the whole Marvel Universe was built on.
Yeah.
But I don't want to see them canceled. But maybe the thing to do is to make them go away for a while.
Yeah.
Just so people want to see them.
Yeah. If you listen to like a bunch of Stan Lee interviews, I mean, they were the thing that saved the Marvel Universe. His thing was like, we're writing romance comics, he's like, and we're going to go out of business. He's like, he decided, him and Kirby decided, he's like, if we're going to go out of business, we're going to do something we want to do first. So at least we go out of business doing things that we find fun. So they just threw together their answer to the Justice League, and, and now Marvel's worth
turned out to be a
billions of dollars, and that was completely the start of it. So that's... I don't think that's going to happen, though. Like the idea they would take it off the shelf temporarily.
That's ground zero for Marvel continuity.
The idea they would take it off the shelf temporarily, like you can buy into simply because they can keep it away for a while and bring it back, and that does seem like a little cheap thing to do. But the X-Men are just making too much money for them.
Yeah.
There's no way they're going to do that.
They're trying to sensationalize it and make it like,
and it's
Uncanny's been selling crazy good lately, just out of nowhere. All new X-Men's been consistently one of the best books. They're about to do this Death of Wolverine story.
Yeah.
They're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars just to prove a point. And those X-Men movies, you can never release another comic again. It's not going to change how many people go and see those. Those are their own thing now. There are people that just go... I mean, obviously, that X-Men movie is going to end up making $700 or $800 million.
Right.
Fucking... comics every month, if you add up all the X-Men books combined, are making less than $1 million.
Well, that's it.
These are like their own things. Like it's not going to matter.
That's where the logic is fucked because
they're just robbing themselves. They're not going to affect those movies at all.
It's like why should we give them free promotion? Well, it's backward in the first fucking place that the comic is giving the movie.
They're actually giving you promotion with the movie.
Yeah, the movie that everybody who buys that comic is going to go see. You love it or hate it, they're going to go. You got them. Well, it's the other people that you're trying to sell a ticket to.
Yeah, and the things, unfortunately, like works the opposite, where it's like you would hope that those always directly affect it. Well, if they do want to random stuff like Guardians of the Galaxy, a book that a lot of those characters are introduced in the '60s, have never been able to have a book that lasted more than a couple of years. Even the highly acclaimed book by Dan Abnett from the early 2000s lasted 30 issues, got canceled. Now they announce a movie, and it's one of their best sellers. Mm-hmm. That's the movie helping the comic.
That
good.
Property is about to just blow up.
That property is about to blow up, it's the opposite.
It's going to be nuts.
It's like, exactly. It's like if you didn't put those comics out, the same amount of people will go see this movie, but now you're getting all this free money from selling Guardians. It's weird. The really established characters it really doesn't seem to affect. Like Spider-Man's going to do whatever he's going to do. Iron Man, it doesn't affect. He's the most popular character, yet his comic can't sell. But these fringe characters... When they announce we're going to make a movie, I assume it'll be the same with Doctor Strange. Now, if they've announced Doctor Strange, when a Doctor Strange book comes out, now the people that do read comics are going to be like, I need to familiarize myself with this guy. He hasn't had a comic in ages. It'll sell like crazy. Why would you rob yourself of the money of these things? Same with X-Men. It's like, since these movies, call it what you will, since Bendis has taken X-Men, it's been way better. Right. Since these last two X-Men movies, First Class really rejuvenated people's interest in the movies.
Oh, yeah.
The X-Books have sold way better since then, so they're just hurting themselves if they do something like that.
An FF movie comes out. It's made by Fox, not Marvel Studios, but you got to be a fool to think Marvel's not going to make money off of that because
still get a licensing fee. It's not like they don't get any money. They don't get it all.
They're getting not as big as pieces.
They're getting a big old piece.
No, it's a big.
Think about it.
Now it's a big business. Now they're like, that movie's making $700 million. We're getting like 50 of it. We would like to find some sort of business way to maneuver ourselves to get the property back, but. They're
not hurting because Fox is making.
You take X-Men. You take X-Men away from Marvel Comics. All of a sudden, they're getting killed by DC.
Yeah.
There's no way they can compete with DC in monthly comic sales if you take away all the books. I mean, you think about there's probably 20 books a month about the X-Men teams or characters if you divide them all out.
Oh yeah.
And speaking of X-Men, before we get to the movie review, I did want to mention tied to that same rumor. is the rumor that Marvel is going to have its own New 52 style reboot in 2015. Thoughts?
I wouldn't be shocked if they did that. I still think like there's a better chance that that's not going to happen than it's going to happen. Just simply because like DC kind of created their problem where Superman, Batman, all these people were like, at least whatever you want to call them, the late 40s, early 50s, Superman had a completely gray hair. You know, Batman is, you know, fucking way older, like trying to pass the torch of being Batman. DC aged their people out to a point to where they're like, well, we just are going to have to, you know, get rid of the characters and bring in new people. And they're like, well, that's not going to work. Marvel has, you know, always done a good job of just sliding the thing. People get older, they'll de-age them a little bit. You know, Magneto shaves his head and all of a sudden it's like Jason Statham and you're like, he might be in his 40s. I don't know. I thought he was like 70, but he feels like he's in his 40s now. And also, I just think with Marvel, the really weird thing is that unlike DC, a lot of these Marvel characters, especially the X-Men and Cap too, I mean, even though you can tell like the old stories, but a lot of their characters, and even Tony Stark, their origins are so set in the time that they happen.
Like Vietnam.
The X-Men happen any time other than the late 60s, early 70s. Totally different story. They don't work, and if they come in any other generation, it doesn't matter as much. Like they're coming in a time where it matters. So like Iron Man, it's like if he's not playing off Howard Hughes, and like what is he? Like he's obviously like in a time where like that guy was like, you know, the crazy inventor guy was a thing.
Well, he's part of the industrial.
Yeah,
you know,
they're also
now.
steeped in like their origins.
Yeah,
it's like you just don't buy.
It's easy to read.
If they're all like in their late 20s, like DC did, or early 30s, and you look, it's like, yeah, I mean, you know, it's like Cyclops is born in like 85. Like I just don't buy like then what's he pissed about? Like, you know, like. Everybody like got treated like way better. They weren't being treated like they were in the 60s, you know. It's like everybody was being treated way better. Or some kids. You got a 15-year-old mutant being born now. It's not the same fight that you had back then. So I just don't think that. Although I would say from just a sheer, I don't want them to relaunch, but from just a sheer like.
I almost think they won't do it. I think
I don't think they will.
DC-52 was popular with the number ones, but. As a whole, I don't think fandom has accepted it.
The whole comic community has rejected the New 52 for the most part, which is unfortunate.
There's still great books here and there, but
I'm still on board with it because I think they might as well have fucking committed. You know, like
I think they have more. I think they have more good books now than when they started.
It was cool for what it was, but like you can't just ignore that whole rich history they had, and the better books don't do that. Like Scott Snyder's Batman is a huge example of that. Like the Zero
or
Year.
Superman, they just worked the things in somehow, but they I think though with Marvel, I look at it from two standpoints. One standpoint, I hope they don't do it. Even though I've only collected comics a couple years, it's still like, so this doesn't count, whatever. And because they slide their ages, it just doesn't seem necessary. Because Daredevil's definitely like a guy in his 30s. He's had 50 years of comics, but in the comics we're reading right now, he's definitely not that old.
Well,
I think Marvel knows.
The way I theorize it, you have a crazy.
I have a bug on me.
We're recording this podcast out on the compound back porch here.
This is the first ever outdoor.
This is the outdoor Getchyapulls for once, and bugs tend to get on me.
Lots of critters,
So I'm in a bad place.
From a sheer money standpoint, I just think about. I think I get like 6 Marvel comics right now. It's actually like my smallest. Like I get more DC and way more Image. Actually, I can get more Image than anything. So I look at it and go, if they relaunched everything, would I be getting more Marvel comics to get right now? And the answer is yes. And if they think about that for everybody, they think that's most everybody's answer, that you're going to at least try out like more stuff than you get right now.
Right.
All new teams, beginning continuity. And from a business standpoint, they might just think it's too good to pass up.
I just think that it's a bad move on their part because they've already kind of relaunched a lot of.
Well, they relaunch everything with new number ones. They just don't.
But it's not just new number ones; it's new directions. Like the X-Men are completely different from what they were like 5 or 6 years ago.
But they just haven't de-aged. Like they haven't gone the DC route of saying like, this is Wolverine number 1. This is Wolverine waking up in 1960 and being like, oh shit, I have animanium now.
I believe Marvel's on a 15-year timeline, so it's like, I mean, which is good because, I mean, if you've got an issue every month, you could theoretically be reading a goddamn exciting life, but one day, in each day in the life of these characters, you know, like just if you theorize that to work out that way. I know that's not always the case.
But it's still the comic version of the timeline because they've got comics where Barack Obama's president, and they have comics where Nixon's president. that's
Right,
30 years apart. So that's.
But
it's just a use your imagination way, yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah. They like accept the fact that as comic fans, we've accepted the fact that like you can't add up this continuity and make it make sense.
I think it goes back to the Ultimate line. Like Marvel knows better to retool completely now because the Ultimate line was so successful because it was just like, okay, you can still have your in-continuity Spider-Man and X-Men, but hey, here's this new jumping on point for everybody else that's just as good as the regular books, and it goes in a
and also
direction
a lesson they
nobody
probably
cares.
learned with that was
it doesn't
that
step over the old fans.
Yeah, and also a lesson they probably learned with that was I remember like even though I wasn't getting comics, like I remember a couple of buddies where Ultimate Spider-Man was like the #1 comic when it came out.
Oh, because it was so.
But eventually
good.
people, eventually people, want their like years of continuity. So then the Ultimate line, basically ended and just relaunched because it lost so much interest over the years. It couldn't compete with the 50-year history of like the rest of the book.
I have a sad Mark Millar story involved in this whole thing. Before I was a Mark Millar fan, I had like the first 12 issues of Ultimate X-Men, which were great. But at the time, I had a huge hole in my Spider-Man collection of the Clone Saga, and I had a friend that had a bunch of those. So I was like, here, you can have my Ultimate X-Men 1 through 12, and I'll take your Clone Sagas off your hands. He's like, okay. And then years later, I'm like fucking a huge Mark Millar fan. I'm hurting for those early Ultimate X-Men books now.
I once traded a Shaquille O'Neal rookie card for a Mark price. I know you're
It hurts. It hurts when you realize, in retrospect, yeah.
But that's kind of the rumors. That's the rumor mill going around right now. A little bit of crazy gasoline. There's a DC rumor that I shoot down a 0% chance of happening, but we'll talk about it.
Just because
the same chance that I could take this beer that's in my hand right now, put it on my penis, and launch it to the moon. Better chance that of happening than this DC thing. But another story that happened if the right girl walked by.
Well, with the rise of the Anti-Monitor now appearing in the New 52, of course, the pundits are going crazy.
Oh, I didn't know anything about this.
Yeah, he appeared in the last issue of Forever
Which I think I know the exact answer to what he's going to be, but the idea
is... Crisis Part 5 or something?
There's still, of course, some people that long for the old continuity.
The conspiracy theory is that Future's End is the actual end of the New 52's future, based on the Anti-Monitor arriving at the end of Forever Evil, and that they will actually end the New 52 continuity and go back to the post-crisis continuity.
I think it won't work because they're about to do Multiversity, which is just now introducing the whole multiverse of the DC universe. But after saying that, now I think maybe that also could be tied into it.
Well, here's where I say there's a 0% chance of that happening. A, they have the same problem as before. If they do that, all of a sudden Batman, Superman, Hal Jordan, all these people are in their 50s, and everybody knows, the people you're wanting to relate comics don't relate to people. You relate to people that are like, late 20s, early 30s. That's the prime of your life.
That's
they don't want to go to the same old. They don't want to go to the same old problems of like, we're gonna have to like do something about these old characters in a couple of years. So it brings that problem back. B,
I think it's a non-problem though. It's like I think they're just too worried about what people think about how old these characters are. It's like it's a non-issue.
But I still do think it's a thing where all of a sudden, if you get to a point where you're like either Bruce Wayne can't be Batman. Like Bruce Wayne has to be Batman. Like I think that's the thing. The comics just aren't going to sell as well if anybody else is Batman.
Yeah,
people may like them, but the sales are not going to be the same. Like that's just
works with certain characters.
It's a crazy problem that comics has. But Clark Kent has to be fucking Superman until there's no more Superman comics. Bruce Wayne is going to be Batman. I mean, that's just he's got the most interesting story.
There's certain characters that work.
Are you going to make a movie about someone who's not?
Hey, I love Dick Bat. Okay. But
Dick Grayson's Batman was cool.
Unfortunately, he came along at a bad time in continuity because it was right at the end.
He was cool for a minute, but if 3 years later he was still Batman and Bruce Wayne was just dead,
that's it.
You would be pining for Bruce Wayne.
That's why Miles Morales works because he doesn't interrupt Peter Parker being Spider-Man in 616 continuity.
Yeah. But you can't have infinite Batmans. I mean, with Batman Incorporated, there's different Batmans, different places. But you can't have like just another Batman. It's like I'm also Batman. It's like, I don't know why, but with Spider-Man it seems to make a little bit more sense. But also, B, it's basically that rumor's been shot down by the fact that Which I find this weird considering so many things done by the internet. I think this is just another DC blunder where they're like, we got to find something to do. When you can just be like, oh, the thing to do is just let the creators write the comics for 2 months and just don't have somebody fuck with them. It'll be okay. But, DC's moving to California.
Oh,
Apparently, maybe 2 editors are going to go with them because every fucking editor is went to Marvel since then that wants to stay living in New York.
Except for the big guys.
They've had waves. Well, other than Lee and the Dio's moving. Lee already lives in California. The rest pretty much have the Batman.
Mike
Mart's the Batman editor left. He's the X-Men editor now. Katie Kubert, who was his assistant editor, took his spot. Just announced she left. You can tell on her Twitter she went to California for 3 days and a week later announced Marvel. So she apparently went out there and was like, not for me. The Vertigo editor staying in New York, they're...
It's not as the same as it used to be because of the age of information. You can just,
well, you would hope, but they want
in all different countries drawing. And
it doesn't work. It doesn't work with it doesn't work with the editors. It's they care for their writers and whatever, but they want their editors to be there. Yeah. So that's the thing. So they're losing. It seems like probably 70-80% of their editors. So what they want to do there's going to be 2 months for the move, and for those 2 months, they're going to interrupt. It's going to be in 2015. The big rumor that's been half confirmed is they're interrupting regular continuity. They're going to do a 2-month event. It's going to be some sort of a crisis event.
That'll be cool.
It's going to be some sort of it's going to be a non-Earth 1 fight.
Yeah.
It's Earth 2, Earth 3. Shit. The other DC Earths are all going to have one big event that affects them and not our Earth.
It's Earth Prime.
And one of the big and one of the big rumors is that the old continuity Earth is going to be in there as part of the fight.
That's fucking cool. I like that.
So there's going to be 2 months where the books are going to be non-New 52 oriented, and a lot of people
see that I could get with.
Yeah, it's a little event.
DC's been doing really
interrupts.
well.
That's a bummer. I know the things that's not going to interrupt are they said any sort of weekly books. If they have weekly books at the time, they'll keep going. But it's going to be also limited. Apparently, there's only going to be 25 or 30 books per month for the 2 months, and then
DC's proven they can do an event like that, and it worked. They did the Villains Month that totally interrupted all the storylines, but it was fucking cool because it was Villains Month.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing this year. They're doing the
Futures End.
The Futures End month. Yeah. But then the regular books aren't. So Batman Eternals is going to come out every week that month. The Futures End regular title. By then the Earth 2 regular title will be coming out, but then all the books will be the Futures End version, which I think is cool. I like the once a year, get a break, get something different from the story.
Yeah, I'm totally with the September sales gimmick.
I'm totally fine with that. And I like the 3D covers last year.
Happen.
And this year, it seems like they've listened to people. There's just going to be a title that goes with each book. So instead of there's going to be 4 Batman books. You got to buy 4 of those. There's going to be 1 Batman, but there's going to be one of everything. There's going to be 1 Batman. There's going to be, a Red Hood and the Outlaws.
Yeah.
Everything gets 1 book. So that's going to be awesome.
It also helps people like me who are trying to, consolidate how many pulls they get per week.
Yeah.
So if you want to skip this month, it's cool.
Mine have gotten too much, man. I was reading the list today, and I was like, I have 23. I was like, I set my limit at 10. I have 23.
I've actually been good at that.
I have a job now.
I've finally
been
good
at for kids, so I can get them.
I've finally been good at setting a limit of how many pulls I get per month and sticking to it. It varies between 8 and 12 books a month, and it's working
That's
for me.
why I would like to have between 10 and 15, but I just looked at my list the other day, and I was like, I just can't. Now that I have them, I can't cut anything off. All new X-Men I was going to cut off, but the last 2 issues have been great, so I'm like... Yeah. Can't cut that off, and then all the Image books I get I really like, and I've got 10 or 12 of them, so if I cut back down to 10, it would just be Image books and Batman, so...
Yeah, the only book really on my chopping block right now is Justice League United, and not in a bad way, it's just that, it's unproven yet, and it's still been pretty good so far.
And if you want something new, that's what'll get replaced.
Yeah, exactly, because I'm not, tied into it, so, I'll go through the first
Well, see, I bought that Superman that I didn't read, and you didn't read, so we'll go to the next one.
It'll be here next one.
But I didn't plan on getting it, but it was on the shelf, and I couldn't help myself because the cover is just so badass.
It's so fucking
good. I'm like, man, if this book is as good as it might be, then that's another pull that I'm just going to get that I didn't plan on getting.
That's another thing. The fucking haters have been out in force. They always come out for certain artists or writers.
There are some
weird things. I don't get it.
I think
some big Jeff Johns haters.
There's huge Jeff Johns haters and huge Romita Jr.
There's Bendis haters, although I think he's kind of overcome it the last couple of years. But he was a guy who just when I started reading comics, now, it's been 2.5 years since we're getting the weekly pulls, but he was definitely a guy that a lot of people hated his Avengers.
Yeah.
But now
we kept doing the big events that were kind of like so.
It's pretty much 100% X-Men love. Like it's hard to find somebody that has anything bad to say about his X-Men.
Speaking of X-Men,
we saw Days of Future Past. It's been so long since we potted. We all went.
We have so many tangents we can go off on. Yeah, and we have.
The books will be short this week, but
time to rein it in a little.
We saw X-Men Days of Future Past. We saw it together. I think it's the only movie we've ever seen together.
Yeah, we all
at least
saw
on
it together.
purpose.
It was awesome.
I think I remember in my life just randomly seeing Todd at other like premieres, but
I don't get out much.
Yeah,
that's probably why.
It wasn't like he sort of like didn't know he was going to be there. It was, oh, hey, cool, man, you're there.
Antisocial and hermetic most of the time. So.
Hey, man, you're talking to the fucking king of that. But, I once had the nickname Party Boy. That was years ago. But
now you're
anyways, yeah, no, now I'm fucking sitting in the reading books and comics guy and watching fucking Netflix. But yeah, man, we saw like some Days of Futures Past, and this has been such a great year. Other than the fact that Spider-Man wasn't great,
which I still haven't seen.
We got.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we got another great movie, man. It's like coming into the year, my list of like Marvel movies was like Avengers is probably the best Marvel movie, and then whatever. And now it's like I think Avengers is probably the third best. Cap and this X-Men were better than it.
So many great movies coming out.
This fucking Days of Futures Past is arguably the best Marvel movie. Like you could really take it whichever way you feel with Cap.
It's definitely the best X-Men movie.
It's by far the best X-Men movie, man, and also it's the first one of these movies. I mean, this is fucking like the, I guess it's technically the 4th, 5th, 6th X-Men movie if you count Wolverine Origins and whatever, and it did like, it was just as good as Cap, but on top, it's the 7th then.
7 or 8 almost.
It's the 7th. But on top of that, it took the history going all the way back to the first one and wrapped it all up. Like anything, it corrected all wrongs. It had an X-Men, fucking Origins, Wolverine, or an X3. It corrected all those things. It was just such a great thing, man. It was a movie that by the end of it, like I had a tear in my eye. I was like, oh my God, like they fucking did it. Like and every X-Men too. Part of it is the writing, but part of it is also technology finally called up. Everybody was what it was supposed to be.
The fucking actors in
Colossus was Colossus. Fucking Iceman was badass. Iceman, I mean, he always in the other movies, he kind of just changed to a different tone.
He looked
like kind of like an Iceman, and this one he fucking goes completely ice, and you're like, oh shit! Makes a rampway and a surfboard and slides off throwing ice, and you're like, it's fucking Iceman, like they've done it, like it's fucking you can't do that.
One critique that Roger Ebert gave for the original X-Men movie was kind of given its due, and this one it's like there's too much time explaining what each character does, too many characters and who they are, what they do. It's like in this one, they introduced some new characters and they showed what they do so well that it doesn't matter. It's like Bishop and Blink just came out of nowhere, and it was like you just totally
one of the big questions of this was that when everybody saw what's his name, Magneto's kid,
Quicksilver,
the preview, you're like, man, he looks kind of dumb.
Yeah,
same with Avengers. He looks dumber in Avengers, BT Dub, but
now he does. At first, not so much.
Well, they both look dumb. This was just the leader of dumb. Was this one?
Yeah.
But you looked at this and were like, man, that looks stupid.
Yep.
He's only in the movie for 15 minutes. He's glorious. He's the star of those 15 minutes, and you're like, this is a character that who the fuck ever cared about. Now, if they came out with a comic just about him tomorrow and it's written like this character in a movie, be happy to read it.
Oh yeah.
He was great. He was hilarious. It was a combination of everything. It was the most epic tale, which of course, I mean, this is fucking Days of Futures Past is their fucking most epic story.
Yeah.
And they fucking did it right. I mean, they changed it obviously from the comic.
Retold in a way that fits in the continuity.
It fits the franchise, yes, exactly. So it was fucking the most epic of the X-Men movie. Had by far the best action, the best character stuff. They did the great bridge. This was like the official bridge from the old to the new cast that passed the torch. Here, some of the old characters are going to have smaller parts in the Age of Apocalypse than they had in this one, but they're going to be there. And gave you absolutely everything. If there was a checklist of things that you wanted, all of them got checked off.
Yeah, and I had some friends that didn't like the movie, and I'm just like,
I don't understand.
What? Where do you, if
you love the comics, or if you're just a fan of the franchise, this is, I would love to hear an argument of how this isn't by far the best movie in the franchise. Like, I just don't see it.
And performance-wise, just hone in on Fassbender and McAvoy's performances.
They're so fucking great.
Magneto and Professor X they just nailed it.
Dude, he's so good as a young Professor X. Now, different than anything you've ever read in the comic. Gave him his own thing. Where he's this young,
much more human.
He's this young, he's this dude. He's not just this brain. He's this young he's a '60s guy, a really smart guy living in the fucking '60s. He's just this young guy who fucking has given up. Like, he fucking feels like he's been fucked over, doesn't care anymore. Like this emotional dude. They did a great job. A thing that I thought was weird in the first movie, because they've just gone to the well on this a couple of times we have a cure for being a mutant. Like, that's a story that I don't care to be told anymore. Fucking used it beautifully in this movie, where fucking Xavier could fucking walk and, do everything as long as he had to lose his powers, and fucking made it this big choice he had to make if he was gonna be the mutant and help his friends, and he had to go back to the chair.
Yeah.
Showed like the pain, which you always felt like in the comics, like Xavier's the guy that like never showed that much emotion. Every once in a while he did, but for the most of the time,
and that's almost like an untapped resource.
And his students are being killed for years and years, all this crazy stuff. Yeah, you never really got like a lot of Xavier origin. Like, you got a little bit. Like, I've been reading like some of the
here and there
early X-Men comics. You get some stuff, but in this, it's just 100% like, like what, like. And as soon as they do it in this movie, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, he's the most tortured of all, because he's their fucking, like, basically their paternal figure, and every time one of them fucks up and gets killed or whatever, like, he feels responsible. So he's fucking dying, little by little. I mean, they did everything, and huge spoilers we'll talk about, but they fucking corrected
it's been a
things
long
you hated.
time. So
and we're
still out there, by the way. If you haven't gone to see it,
go see that first.
Go see that.
We haven't spoiled too much.
And somehow they did the perfect job of hiding the fucking Scott and Jean cameos. Now, you kind of felt like Jean may pop up, because she was in Wolverine, a little bit, and all of his dreams and stuff, so that didn't surprise me. But at the fucking end of the movie, one of the best things, of course, they win, spoiler alert, and, save themselves and get a whole new future. And they go into the future, and they go back into the Xavier school. Wolverine's back there looking around, and fucking everybody's there. He sees fucking Professor X is fucking there, running the school. He sees they did a bunch of great inside X-Men things. You see Kitty and Colossus hanging out with each other. It's like, oh shit, because that's obviously a known long-term relationship in X-Men comics, which they've never really, done in the movies. But they're together. You see Rogue and fucking Iceman, which of course is their universe version of their like story.
Rogue and Gambit.
Yeah, Rogue and Gambit, but they're there. So they're together. Anna Paquin got back in the movie when she, they thought she was cut. She had a side storyline that was cut where they were going to go save her, but it was just too much time, like in a different scene. But she's still in there. Fucking Kelsey Grammer, randomly they kept that secret. He comes walking through his beast, and you're like, oh shit,
They
awesome.
really tied it all together.
And then Wolverine goes in the room and sees fucking Xavier and turns around. It's like, what the fuck? Turns around and sees Jean, steps to her, and fucking Scott jumps in the way. He's like, what you doing, bro? And you're like, oh shit, fucking Cyclops is fucking alive. This is great.
They fixed everything moving forward. And then, of course, the post-credits.
Yeah, and then the post-credit scene was also the subject, which, they had said...
one of my favorite X-Men villains.
So sweet.
They'd already announced that the next one was going to be Apocalypse, so you kind of knew it was going to happen, but still, to fucking see it was fucking great. They showed a young, fucking, small, skinny Apocalypse.
Back in the ancient Egyptian days. The secret origins of the pyramid.
Yeah, you got the whole crowd like chanting his name, and then they pan off behind him, and there's the fucking Horsemen all like behind him, like sitting there, and you're just like, shit's on the fucking next movie, like it's obviously gonna happen. And they left you also enough questions to where you're excited, because Wolverine they completely changed up his origin a bit.
Yeah,
because he the whole time dreamed about basically after these events. He knew that, like, he's going to get fucked up by Magneto, fall in the water, and then fucking William fucking Stryker's going to find him, and that's, going to be the fucking Weapon X. Instead, Mystique found him, so you kind of wonder, like, what the fuck's going to happen here. Like, like, what's going to happen to him in the new continuity. But it was great.
It's a great way to do it.
Everybody looked great in it. The action was the best ever. The performances were the best ever. Like, they've really, this time, I loved all the actors in the old ones, but in this one, they've even stepped it up even better. Like, they've got these great actors, and And there's nothing about it that you look at and go, I'm missing this. It was just so good.
It's kind of a testament, like, in this day of all these reboots, where it's like you feel like you have to completely reboot the series to make it work. It deals with the old continuity in a way that's just completely solid.
They pulled the J.J. Abrams Star Trek, where they're like, we're just going to like kind of like do a new timeline.
We'll go over here instead.
Yeah, and they're so far in the future. And also the next one, Age of Apocalypse, is going to be in the 80s.
Yeah.
So they're going to age up the characters like a few years, so it's going to be in the 80s.
I can't wait.
They're going to bring in some new characters.
80s X-Men.
They're going to bring in some new characters, so like the big rumor obviously is it's going to be like the giant-sized characters. So
gotta be, man.
You're going to get Wolverine back, you're going to get a young Storm, a young Nightcrawler, a young Colossus. They're going to be
possibly
like
new Cyclops.
New Cyclops, new Jean.
James
like
Marsden is young enough where he could completely come back and it'd be
He would be possible. You'd have to have new Jean, but yes, that's possible. Yeah. But they're going to bring in the new characters for that. It's going to be Age of Apocalypse, and they've already said too, despite like it doesn't look like Bryan Singer or anything is going to come with those allegations. Like they came out and were like, he's the director. Like until we hear otherwise, like as long as he's around, which is great because I mean, if you look at, technology's caught up, and also the freedom it seems like these guys have to write the scripts. These comic book movies have come to where they don't have to fucking kind of like make them like all Hollywoody anymore. I mean, his 4 X-Men movies have all been super great.
Oh, yeah.
Even the first X-Men, you're like, it's not a great movie. Well, at the time, it was fucking blew your mind.
Yeah, it
X2 for years was the best comic book movie that had been made.
X2 is the high water mark.
And it's still great, but it's just First Class. It's just the fucking thing of First Class, which he just produced. But First Class, he was heavily involved in this, have like take it to the next level. Like, those are the best 2 X-Men movies. And you're like, everything he's touched has been great. So... So excited that fucking X-Men is like a thing to just completely look forward to now, where it wasn't, just
it was shaky
a short few years ago.
Yeah.
But I guess we're getting some books.
We'll
take it back.
Let's go back on track here. We'll go back to the long box, which it's been a while since we've explained what Back to the Long Box is, but I'll go ahead and do a short spiel. We like to go back and tell a tale of comics from years past. And for me, it's
comics from 1998.
Comics from 1998. And
year of Todd's long box.
I don't know what it is, but
Did you lose your virginity in 1998?
No, it was years before that. But I always have I was like, hey, I'll go back and do that story because I loved it. And then I'll look at it, damn it, it's 1998 again. But yeah, sure enough, this one is from 98. It's the Jay and Silent Bob 4-part miniseries from Oni Press. This is very early Kevin Smith.
I didn't know fucking Oni Press was around back then.
Yeah, this was pretty early days for them. But Kevin Smith is starting his comics career with Daredevil, and he did a Clerks comic before this. But this comic was, at the time, meant to bridge the gap between the movies Chasing Amy and Dogma to find out what happens to the characters Jay and Silent Bob. And there's some pretty cool covers here. The first one has a Joe Quesada cover, which is pretty badass. It looks all 70s and retro style. But the main reason I chose this was because it's drawn by Duncan Fegredo from the new Mark Millar comic that just is now coming out, MPH, which is phenomenal. I'll talk a little bit about that later. But it's just, if you like Kevin Smith, this story is really fucking good. And Duncan Fegredo is really detail-oriented. I mean, just looking at one of his splash pages, it's just detail nonstop. And Kevin Smith goes and expands characters from, of course, all of his movies. And you see a lot of the characters come in and out. And they actually, one storyline that occurs later, the whole thing with the monkey Suzanne, which they allude to at the very end of Mallrats, he went ahead and told the story of Suzanne the monkey in here, and it is, of course, just like in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, it has like the fugitive kind of storyline. And here the like, instead of Marshall Willenhall, it looks like Tommy Lee Jones. And it's kind of weird. I guess he decided to retcon it later and retell the story in movie form just for the fans. So it's like, okay, now if you just saw the movies, that makes sense. But if you're like me, it's kind of funnier to think that these events with the monkey happened twice anyway. So, yeah, they find Suzanne, and hilarity ensues. It's a well-written comic, and just looking at just a page of it, you can see he's still kind of getting his pacing comic-wise down. It's just wall of text almost, but Figueredo finds a way to work it around. He's a great artist.
Those are the great Fat Metal Batman quotes when he's talking about the comics first time. He's like, Joe Quesada calls me on the phone and is like, I have to have room to draw the pictures, Kevin.
Yes. Well, he's still working with that, but Figueredo really helps him out here. And he's just a great artist. All his facial expressions are hilarious, and all the jokes play off really well because of how solid of an artist he is. And I want to see him on more stuff. But I look forward to his career.
Awesome. Awesome.
Go check out Jane Silent Bob. It was re-released in trade paperback as Chasing Dogma. So if you can find that, I totally suggest reading. Especially if you're a Kevin Smith fan.
The Secret Sash website.
Yeah, go see. Yeah, I've checked recently. They still have it on there. Just Amazon, anywhere. Go check.
Or you could probably actually call the store if you wanted to get it from like some celebs.
Yeah.
They really do work there.
They have it. They probably have the single issues ready for you.
Yeah, you call the Secret Sash number and like, I want to order this. You might talk to either Walt or Mike and talk you to a comic book man. Get you a comic.
Very good possibility.
And the covers are great. They get their friends to help out. We got a Mike Allred for issue 2. Issue 3 is Jamie Hernandez from Love and Rockets. And then we got the Figueredo on the last cover, which I used to have a poster of this, and it looks bad as hell. Nice. Beer bottles all over the place and beer cans.
Fantastic. Well,
classic Kevin Smith. Right there.
Continuing on my Back to the Long Box run, I am still on Chew by John Layman from Image Comics. I've got volumes 3 and 4 for Father's Day.
Nice.
And these, whereas the first 2 volumes were focused on like one big bad, these are more on one overarching story with a different villain pretty much each issue. They apprehend a list of various suspects that are committing food-related crimes. And I love the book. You get to meet Pollo, the crazy chicken, in this one. Like you met him briefly in the others, but he really fucked some shit up in these volumes, and they're pretty closely tied together. But just a crazy, quirky, offbeat comedy action adventure. One of my great delights, really, of books that I didn't know were out there, or just heard a little bit about and wanted to check out, and was really blown away by it.
Nice. I heard they recently did a combo Chew revival.
Yes, we'll be talking about that later.
Talking about that this week.
Well, I'm glad I brought that up.
Yeah, the Back to the Long Box is pretty cool. It's actually a newer, I guess it came out within last month. But it's back from the bookshelf. It's Andre the Giant by Box Brown, who's an indie guy, more of, I guess, you consider him like an illustrator. Like that's kind of what I guess a lot of those guys are. He draws and writes the comics. He's got the classic like Sunday paper style cartooning that he does, which is really awesome.
Through it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's really cool. It's about Andre the Giant. Of course, we're me and Dan are big wrestling people, but it's really good. It's got a great synopsis. It tells his whole life from the time he's born until he dies, and has a bunch of great stories. It wasn't really just being like a wrestling fan for so long and watching so many documentaries, reading so many books. There wasn't really any stories that were new to me, but it was like it had a great pacing and told the story really well. And if you didn't know all about Andre the Giant, just seen him wrestle a few times, this gives a great story. I mean, it covers everything from growing up in France to how he got into wrestling to his different late night, TV appearances, Princess Bride, and some other great stuff. There's a big wrestling fan. It's got all sorts of random stuff because they draw in the actual guys he was with when he's doing the thing. So it's got like the classic Japan tour where it's like him and Dusty Rhodes and Hogan and just a who's who of wrestling from like 1985, and you're like, holy shit, and it's got the stories. It's got stories with Harley Race and Blackjack Mulligan, just the who's who of people from the 70s and 80s in wrestling.
That's the thing. Like, is a comic book like that works for people like him because he's one of those legendary wrestlers. Like anybody, even if you don't know much about wrestling, he's on the short list of less than 10 names of guys of like Hogan, Andre the Giant, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, guys that if you've barely even heard of wrestling, like who they laid the
are,
groundwork for everything that happened.
But it's done really good, and it's like both sides. It shows some like incidents where he, like came out on the wrong side. There's a Bad News Brown story in there where he was did something where he's kind of an asshole, and a couple of times where he got too drunk, because Andre, of course, classically could drink shit tons of alcohol, and they've got some of the good stories there. But really well done. Really recommend it if you like wrestling, or if you're just curious about old Andre, then it's a great read.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's a quick one, too. Like, those solid books are quick. Like, I probably read it in like half an hour. It's 200 pages, read it in half an hour, because, it's just mostly pictures and stories, so it's really great.
Awesome. Well, at almost an hour into this podcast, we will now get to our pulls in a lightning quick edition of the run through here.
Our epic pull list.
Probably go to the new format on the pull list like this week, based on what we were talking about earlier, where it's going to be very brief synopsis, but
no problem there.
The big issues, we can talk a little bit more about.
Yeah, we'll start out with DC. So go through my DC list real quick. I had a few semi-important ones. Superman, Wonder Woman #9 continues to be a great comic, written by Charlie Soule.
Still in the Doomsday storyline.
It is a Superman Doomed, the second part of it, Enemy of the State Part 2, yes. I believe that in July there are 2 more and the story's over. But yes, it's still part of the Doomed storyline.
Oh, it's been so good. It's been so much better than, you anticipated.
It's been really great, and this is a really great issue because you get a great appearance by Supergirl, which if you're not reading Red Lantern, so I think the Supergirl comic got
red ring
canceled.
right now.
Yeah, she's got a red ring. She's part of that crew. She shows up with Kyle Rayner, who's also a Red Lantern right now.
Guy Gardner.
Guy Gardner, my bad.
I've heard that
a comic that became great. The minute you dropped it, Charlie Soule took over, and it's been reviewed greatly. But
it sucks so
it's Guy Gardner and her, like kind of the leaders of Lanterns, and she's supposed to have been great, and so they show up near the end of the comic because Superman's out in space, and they want, they're like, we're watching this territory, and it's been really good, man. It's been totally the opposite of like what you thought it was going to be. Like I said, it's probably on all the pods, but you thought it was just going to be him fighting Doomsday, but it's really more of Superman like having like an inner battle with himself, and proving to himself, he's no matter what, he's still going to be the guy that he is. So it was great. Detective Comics, quite possibly the best looking comic there is right now. Detective 32, man, we got Francis Menopause, Brian Buccellato. It's good, it's interesting, it's different. It sets itself apart from the other Batman comics because it's just so street level in comparison, what's going on. It just looks so good, like it's ridiculously...
They're still coming off their heat from their legendary Flash
run. If you like their Flash run, they continue it, and a lot of people had questions because a lot of their Flash run was so dominated by the bright colors, and you're like, is this going to work, with like the muted tones and like the different stuff, and fuck yeah, it's so great looking.
It does.
Yeah, it looks so great.
Fantastic.
Harley Quinn #7, it was good. Once again, it's always like a light, fun little read every month. This was basically her and Poison Ivy. You get to find out some hilarious stuff. Basically the whole gimmick of the comic is that somebody put a hit out on Harley where, because they wanted her dead because she was too good of a hitman. And it turns out that she's been, because this is such a weird, crazy comic, spoilers, I think it'll ruin the fun of it knowing this, but she has been sleepwalking, and when she sleepwalked, she broke into her own computer. She got on her own computer. She's the one that put out the bounty on herself. So she's the reason all these people have been trying to kill her. She's realized, she's like, well, there's probably starting to be people coming to kill me. So
fun twist.
It's really good. Poison Ivy's been a great co-star in the book. Justice League 31, really good. You get a little bit more Anti-Monitor. Basically, you find out Cyborg and Shazam are up in the new Watchtower, looking out for him because they know he's out there somewhere. They know he's going to be a threat, so you know that's going to be coming. And this issue was basically just all about Lex Luthor, from the last comic, from the last few things that happened, has put together who Batman is.
Oh, shit.
And he confronts Bruce Wayne, and you get to see what transpires from that. What happens, and if Bruce is able to, get him off his tail, and what goes on with it. So it's a badass issue. And then my last DC, Batman 32, the next to last 0-year issue. You finally get to see by the end of it, Bruce come face to face, not on a big screen or anything. He comes face to face with the Riddler.
Nice.
And and we're gonna have to see what happens in the next issue, how it's gonna finish
can't wait
out.
to read it.
A great next to last issue of a really great story.
Awesome. Well, continuing the Batman theme, I had Batman Eternal 10, 11, and 12 over the last 3 weeks. And story just continues to get great. Falcone's fucking shit up. Detective Jason Bard is coming into his own as a new star.
Nerd.
The one piece of moral conscience, him and Harvey Bullock are really the only things holding down the police force. Well, Batwoman's girlfriend, Sawyer. Maggie Sawyer. Yeah. She's cool too. But the rest of the Gotham police force is fucked. They're just totally overran by Falcone's men. Yes. And Gordon's in prison and going to trial over this whole shit where a million people got killed in the bus station. And it's just, man, it's intense, and it's one of the best books they got going. Every week you got something to look forward to, and it's another piece of a great story.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've seen in these last 2 issues cameos from Catwoman and Batgirl, who've been heavily involved. They really expand the whole universe. Is a big part of Tim Drake being involved in this too.
And a great thing that Snyder goes back to was like that kind of left open thing from Jeff Loeb is like awesome, kind of his own little Batman universe. Which basically you could add kind of Frank Miller and Jeff Loeb's, and that's almost a whole Batman storyline. But the thread that was left open in Winning in Rome, which I guess we'll probably end up getting answered here for sure, which was, you found out Winning in Rome was all about Catwoman, was awesome, a great story, but it was all about how Catwoman had figured out as a rumor that Falcone is actually her dad. Oh, and by the end of that comic, you're left with maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but you don't know for sure.
Yeah.
It seems like they're finally going to answer that in this new continuity in this story.
Very well could. So that's just been amazing. And then Aquaman number 32 that came out this week. A Mira heavy story, really shows her badassness.
Like those, man. They've made Mira like an important, cool character. Like, she has more potential to where they can make her. She's been written so well, they could really make her a much more important character in the DCU.
Well, they definitely go that route in this issue. She gets cornered by that the other colony that once tried to claim her and claims the true bloodline of Atlantis that they've been kind of having tension with. Well, they full on attack her and the Atlantic Kingdom in this one, and Aquaman's gone off doing other shit, as we saw in the last issue with his confrontation with Swamp Thing. Yeah. So what she has to do is just fucking get the whole Atlantic forces rallied behind her when they really don't trust her anyway. So she really has a big moment of leadership and fucking badassness in this issue, and it's really cool. The Flash, this Robert Venditti story, moving on to Flash number 32. Really interesting arc. We have Barry Allen from the future, who has found out that all of the time jumping and the abuse of the Speed Force is tearing apart the space-time continuum and himself. And so he's going back in time to kill the Rogues.
I'm gonna go back in time
to prevent certain shit from happening. And he's trying to get to the present day. So you see him in each issue, he's getting a little bit closer to being back to the present day. And he's in this issue, he kills Captain Cold in the future on his deathbed, and it's really fucked up. Yeah,
pretty cool concept.
So this crazy future Flash at the end of his rope is going to end up running head first into modern Flash.
Not like the blue Flash they've got set up for this.
Yeah, that's the crazy future Flash. So it's going to be crazy. And of course, Wally West, somehow I believe it's going to tie into him getting his powers because he's been introduced. So it's been awesome. And then the other two DC I had were Secret Origins number 2 and 3. Really loving these books at a hefty price tag of $4.99, but you get a really large size book. Yeah, they're huge, and you get multiple stories.
Get your money's worth there.
Issue number 2, we had the New 52 Origins of Batman, Aquaman, and Starfire. Loving the Batman. They didn't change anything. Except for they add this narrative, who you are led to believe is Gordon doing the narrative, but they never actually reveal who it is.
Yeah.
Talking about Batman and essentially what he means to the city. And where he came from, kind of with somewhat of a knowledge of his past, so that's why I think it's Gordon.
Sweet.
And like, it nails it. It drives the point home of why you love Batman, and it's they don't ever need to do another Batman origin in New 52 because this is it. They gave you everything you expected, and then they added the nice little narrative on top of it. Aquaman origin was great. Starfire was pretty good. Green Lantern origin was fantastic in issue number 3. As was Batwoman was pretty much a retread. You'd seen all of that in the Batman graphic or the Batwoman graphic novel, but they did a good job of at least putting it in the nice little one-shot story. And then the Red Robin origin was fucking amazing in this one. Like because that's been one of the big questions, right? In the New 52 is what's up with Tim Drake's origin? Was he Robin? Was he not? Well, he was Robin. Talks about why he chose the name Red Robin. They really tied into the Jason Todd origin, and it was fucking fantastic. So my DC pick of the week, Secret Origins number 2 and 3 in a tie.
Sweet.
Nice. You got some DC books, bruh?
No DC for me.
All
It's
right,
like
well, on to
very
the
light on
creator
DC,
owned.
boys.
Well, you could be first in creator owned.
Creator and oh shit, I gotta change gears here. Let me switch over here. Should we start Image or IDW?
Oh, whatever you want.
Whatever you want, man. Just all your creator owned.
I'll
Creator owned
go.
is
I'll start
Island
with
Unto
IDW. This is a book that's gonna sadly replace Ghostbusters. Because I've really liked the few IDW books I've read because they really seem to have a handle on what makes these properties work. Of course, their whole thing is like using these already existing properties and making a comic book out of them.
Yeah, that seemed like another new kind of comic renaissance thing. It's
Yeah.
like they're not just tossing out like these comics with the properties just because they have the rights. Like they got people that actually like give a shit.
Yes.
And like stories that like you could like the new X-Files. I read the first couple issues. I'm gonna wait and get a bunch of trades, but it's like this could be the next X-Files movie. Like these people really care about these stories.
They really get what the properties are all about, and I picked up Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 35 due to a review I read on Comic Vine. That's where I saw it first. The cover, of course, features Slash, one of my favorite Ninja Turtles villains slash companions.
That's the evil turtle.
The evil brother of the Ninja Turtles, and the title even uses the old classic like font from the original Kevin Eastman Peter Laird stories, and it really acts as like a continuation of all of that shit, and it's kind of a testament to how cool this property has been for so long that they can have like the Nickelodeon show. They have the new Michael Bay movie coming out, but you can have all these different interpretations of this franchise, and they all have their place. It's just
I saw an interview.
People love the new Ninja Turtle.
I saw an interview with Kevin Eastman where he made like a great point about the new Michael Bay movie and everything, which was at HeroesCon. It was just the day after we left. Where he said, he's like, he views like the Ninja Turtles. They ask him like, what do you think about like, your version of the Ninja Turtles and how it got changed? He's like, well, mine got changed a billion times. He's like, when I wrote the Ninja Turtles that I wrote, the comics, he's like, those were for adults. He's like, those were adult things. And then they came to me and said, we want to make a cartoon out of it. He's like, so instead of saying no or whatever, he's like, I made the cartoon.
Yeah.
And he said his favorite ever interpretation is just the first Ninja Turtles movies because he's like, it's a bridge between the two.
Yeah.
It's got some of like the humor, whatever, but it's also like adult enough. But he's like, you shouldn't view it as like, people shouldn't be so married to like the Ninja Turtles they grew up with because the cartoon, the first comic, the movie, the new cartoon.
Well, like, the new cartoon is really
he's like, they're all totally different properties. He's like, you should view them like Batman. Like there's 4 or 5 different versions of Batman that you can love differently. They're just different. And he said the same with Michael Bay. He's like, this is just another version, which if you like it, you like it. You don't, you don't. But it shouldn't have any sort of like, it's like you could love like the way I wrote the comic. Which even said, like, this new movie is probably the closest to, like, his original vision of the Turtles of anything.
That's
interesting.
Yeah, he's like, you should be able to love the cartoon from your childhood and love this new version at the same time. And I thought that was, like, actually a good comparison. When you think about it, that is true. Like, it is a very Batman-esque, way to look at them.
And that's what makes this comic work so well. It seems like a perfect culmination of every property that's come out, and it doesn't step on anybody. It's just... You could be a fan of the 80s cartoon, you could be a fan of the movie, you could be a fan of the new Nickelodeon cartoon, and pick this up. You're going to see some of the characters from any of those, and it works great. There's a great Casey Jones moment where he's overwhelmed by all these people, and his mask gets knocked off, and he has 2 baseball bats, and he's like, just bring it on. He starts wailing on these guys, and it's just...
Dude, Turtles were my shit.
Yeah.
So fucking hard when I was a kid. So I would love to get back into it.
I love the Turtles. Those are one of the things that I like basically completed. Like I had all 4 Turtles. I had a Shredder, had a Splinter, had Bebop and Rocksteady, had an April O'Neil. Didn't get any of the vehicles, unfortunately. Some dick I was friends with was going over his house. He had their fucking machine. He had the sewer and everything. But yeah, dude, I mean, our generation, Turtles was one of like the top 5 movies that came out when we were kids that just made you go ape shit. Batman '89 for most of us is the biggest event ever. Turtles is like right there behind it. It's like the movie that was you went ape shit over. But
well, if you're a fan of any version of Ninja Turtles, I recommend this. Kevin Eastman is still heavily involved. He's writing, he's producing, he is heavily involved in this title. So pick it up. I finally did, and I don't regret it whatsoever.
Nice.
Awesome. I'm going to check some of that in trade. I'm pretty much sold on it.
Yeah, I'm going to try to find all the subsequent issues of it. Moving on to the Millar-verse, Starlight number 4 features a pretty badass cover by Travis Charest, who doesn't do that much comic art. I mean, he takes a long time to do whatever he does. The cover's badass. Starlight is a great comic. It goes back to the serials of the swashbuckling sci-fi adventure. You won't be disappointed by that. It's been a while since I've read this issue. I don't know what happens. Moving on to MPH, which is just a really short run. It's only going to be 6 issues. But Mark Millar's writing it.
It's not about Doogie Howser.
No.
That's not. That's
Michael. MPH.
Oh, okay.
MPH, Duncan Fegredo on art, and he's just nailing it. It kind of continues Mark Millar's theme of the real life superhero. It follows the exploits of this guy that was like a drug runner. He gets incarcerated and subsequently happens upon a bottle of pills called MPH. Nobody knows what the hell it does. He takes it, starts foaming at the mouth, goes into convulsions, and they bring him into the infirmary. And as they're doing that, time just slows down to a pause. And he's just like, okay, if nobody's going to do anything, I'm going to walk right out of this prison. And of course, he has the hindsight to go back to the guy that has the bottle of MPH, and he takes that with him. And as of issue 2, he finds some of his friends, and he's like, hey, we all need to take this. I have a limited supply of this, but we can do whatever we want. They go cross-country, just running their ass off, and it's a cool interpretation of what actual people would do if they had access to super Speed Force powers. And it's a real treat. I can't wait to see how it lines up there.
Some of those Millar books that was greenlit before the comic came out. I think Millar is just like, I wrote a paragraph in this comic, and they look at it and no, we'll make it a movie.
Well, exactly. Yeah, there's gonna be an MPH movie, no doubt about it.
They finally started showing the previews for
Kingsman.
They changed it to Kingsman.
Yeah, it was Secret Service.
Secret Service,
and it looks great. Yeah, I can't wait to see it.
Well, I go to my creator-owned books. First, talk about Cal, which is great. I really love the art in the first one. Rod Reese doing the art. He did a few Nightwing issues, and then it appears as if Kyle Higgins was just like, hey, why don't you stop doing this, and we'll just do a book together. And it was a great idea because it's really, really good looking. And this one was more interesting, like the story, where in the first issue, the story was good, but I was like, kind of like, where's it going to go? This one, I was very happy with. The story caught up to the art. The art is great, man. And Rod Reese, it's hard to find somebody that draws like a better looking, just like view of a city, man. Anytime that like he's drawing buildings in Chicago, like it just looks ridiculously good. So really excited for Cal. That's another book that just due to monies, I was secretly like, man, maybe it just won't be that good, and I'll just drop it and just have the issues. But nope. Gonna have to keep it. And then
loyalty to Kyle Higgins prevails.
He's good, man. Nightwing. I love Nightwing. That was one of the, along with J.H. Williams.
Oh shit, J.H. Williams.
Oh, that's Todd. He's taking a piss. That's along with J.H. Williams on Batwoman, and the announcement that Azzarello and Chang are leaving Wonder Woman at some point, which I think it's very possible. They've told their story, so whatever. Kyle Higgins leaving Nightwing was one of the New 52 tragedies where I was pretty bummed out. Although he never kept the same artist for one of the few issues, so it was always weird, the continuity of it's like, who the fuck is drawing it this month? But loved it.
I can't wait for the next Sandman to come out for me to gush about J.H. Williams for
so love the art.
Good 30 minutes.
Look at that. This guy draws like the best like some of the best backgrounds that
I've heard good stuff about Cal.
Rod Reese he draws like such good backgrounds, man. Like just look at the buildings and the city. It just looks so great. Fatale. Ed Brubaker said this is a sex issue. He was correct. It's a lot of Josephine doing it with dudes.
Boobs.
Great issue. Basically gave you like enough of like everything that was shrouded in her past. She just came out, basically told filled in the blanks of her story of what's happened to get her here to this point. Dropped a little bit of a bombshell.
Oh, about the kid.
She had a kid that fell for her. Yeah, that was
fucked up power.
Yeah, that was pretty fucked up. And setting you up for what's going to be a tearful finale to such a great book by Brubaker and Phillips. But right side being is that Brubaker says the next project after that is probably their most ambitious and he's the most excited about, and that pops up the month after. So there will be no break between Brubaker Phillips goodness. It's coming straight after that.
Fatal is one of my favorite indie books ever.
It's great, man. That's the very first book. Like, I mean, just started getting the weeklies, or actually reading comics basically in general, like right after New 52, and that was the fucking very first indie book that I was like, I gotta get this. I got it from issue 1. It has not let us down at all. A couple other books, Chew Revival crossover. A little bit late getting this, but it was really entertaining.
It was awesome.
You basically got a story from like both points of view that, part of it was the same story and then they kind of went in their own directions, but you got, the main players from Chew and Revival teaming up for an issue, in
I really love the very realistic drawn Chew characters.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, and then you also got the crazy cartoony Revival characters. So it was awesome. It was really great. They said they were going to do one of these, but I think this comic did really well. So, it's probably possible that we'll get another one in the future. So, really loved it. And then, probably my favorite indie book that I read all week, Sex Criminals #6.
God damn it.
Was great.
I mean, of course, we have a soft spot for these guys because they were so nice and welcoming and they're fun to talk to at HeroesCon. But god damn it, the reason that we stood in line for them for all that time was because of this goddamn book. And
yeah, I mean, I've never heard of Chip Zdarsky before 6 months ago, but Sex Criminals has just been so phenomenal. And it's so great and so funny. And, just another book, like once again, just another month in a row where the book had you cracking up, and it's just a brutally honest way of looking at relationships between men and women.
Yeah,
and
like the
shit that happens.
If you read the letters column, which is of the best things in comics, is the letters column.
The letters column is worth more than lots of pulls.
Like you really see how much this book affects people and like their sexuality and how it's like I don't think they ever dreamed that people would like latch onto this book as a sexual identification thing of people coming of age and even people in their late 20s and early 30s that are just like, have...
It's like things that you think, but you're like, finally, somebody's like talking about it and making it okay to like talk about some of this bullshit that everyone wants to talk about, but is, such faux pas.
Yeah, I really think in years this is going to be looked at as like a groundbreaking comic that possibly changed more than just the comic industry.
Yeah. It's great. That's it. I've got more indie books. Actually, possibly, other than Sex Criminals, my real heavy named hitters I didn't get to due to just being too tired, being old and being tired after work. So next week we'll have Outcast #1, the highly anticipated review. Also some Saga, which
you just seem to have more Image books than.
I have no Image anything. The problem is
Image is putting out the best books right now.
Yeah, you can't let yourself get a book. Once you grab an Image book, you can't drop it. So that's the problem. Like I'm really afraid because I got that Saga and Revival for next week, all three of those, and I got short at the comic book store. They got short Amazing Spider-Man, so I had to order it off Midtown. Ordered it, got me another copy of Outcast just because it's already being speculated and sold real good. And I was just like, to make the shipping worth it, I was like, I'll try out The Wicked and Divine, which is like
oh God, people have been
talking about how great it is. It's Karen Gillan and Jamie McKelvey, who've done a shit ton of stuff together. Everybody's been loving it, so I'm already afraid that I'm going to get it and be like, the pull list is coming.
Well, I had just two on the creator-owned / indie line. One was Sons of Anarchy #10, and I loved this one. It's really identified where it was in the timeline of this little 3-part story, and where they're fighting with the Russians. This actually goes back to in between seasons 3 and 4 when the boys got locked away at the end of season 3.
That was some of the toughest stuff that happened.
And this issue and this whole arc is what happened while they were in prison in between seasons. So I love that they did that.
The lead up.
Fucking awesome.
Yeah. That's a series I'm going to have to get caught up on and start watching the show.
Yeah, dude.
I got it on Netflix.
It's amazing.
It's great, man. It's a series that like is great, and I always like really liked it, but kind of fought like because it's just not. It's just a series that like from like first glance, even watching, it's like it doesn't really like fall into the category of like you're like man, The acting's really good, but you know it's not as good as some shows. The acting's not as good as some shows, but you put the total package together.
Yeah.
You fucking. But at the end of each episode, you just look back and go like, did I enjoy anything more this week than this? It's like, no,
Probably not.
It's great. You add it all up, and you're like, it's just great. I mean, it's
Reluctant
definitely
fan, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely not even reluctant, but it's just one of those that you look at and you go, yeah, they're not. The acting's not as good as like Mad Men or Breaking Bad, and this is that. But god damn it, man! Like I was not anticipating anything more than this. Yeah. It is definitely like among like that elite caliber show, like whatever order you want to put things in.
It's what I like to affectionately refer to as the butthole clincher programs, where at the end of each episode, in most cases, your sphincter is locked up so tight you could shove up some coal and pop out a diamond. The only other indie creator-owned book I had this week was Walking Dead number, what the fuck, 128.
128. 127, by the way, getting a lot of aftermarket buzz because of that Outcast preview. People are paying for it.
Yeah.
So
quite interesting. Well, I really enjoyed this one. I really like what they've done with the time jump, and I really like what they're doing. This issue is pretty much all about grilling the newbies. They've now accepted a new group of estranged travelers into their fold.
Like new look Rick.
Yeah, old Rick. He looks old as shit.
He's got him a buzz cut and a beard, so new look, new action figures coming, I'm sure.
Emo Carl.
Yes. Really emo Carl, saw some boobs.
With a fucking puka shell necklace.
Yeah, fucking Carl found somehow, and even in the apocalypse, puka shell necklaces somehow survived. Though one has not been sold in 20 and fucking 15 years, they're still around.
We also get a little tease on what's going on with Negan and him again, but mainly it was about them breaking in noobs.
Yeah.
It was a good issue.
Let's go over to Marvel real quick. Got the all-new X-Men. You got that book?
I do. I don't have it with me, but I
cool.
really, really enjoyed it.
Number 28. I gotta remind myself what happened in it. Really good issue. The future X-Men, who you really thought you were done with after Battle of the Atom, but
they were really focused on the Charles X.
That future Charles Xavier and Reyes were pretty cool characters.
Yeah, they're back, and they've determined that they must fucking kill old school Jean Grey.
It's really, this book is kind of solidifying itself as the X-Men book right now.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's been for the majority of the time. With all the crossovers, didn't know, but with Wolverine and the X-Men changing over and stuff, it really has. But it's really good. I mean, you get the big battle between them. You get to kind of see they're still playing with the 3 different generations of X-Men, and despite the fact that on paper you would think that would need to be over by now, they still find really creative, cool ways to keep it interesting and keep it going.
Got a little bit of holdover from the Battle of the Atom storyline, but that book really does best when it's like doing its own thing, not connected to the other storylines necessarily.
Yeah. Wade Sammy Rodriguez on Daredevil. I guess a little bit of sad news. I believe Javier Rodriguez is about to concentrate on his just penciling and inking. He's been the colorist for Daredevil and a big part of like the way how it looks awesome, but he also draws.
Overachieving artist.
Yeah, he's done some fill-ins where he's like, for Chris Samney, where he's actually done like the pencils on the book, I believe, before.
He's doing triple duty, man. I mean, you gotta love it.
He's great, but I think he's going to concentrate just on the pencil and inking. So
and that's fine. It's like most books, it's just penciler, just inker.
Yeah, very soon he won't be part of the Daredevil thing, but. Continuing the really good story here with Daredevil. Got some really cool also, one of the things I like the most of Daredevil. We got it's a great scene where a couple of just random girls ask to have their picture taken with him, and of course he's blind, so they take the selfie. When they take the selfie, they put the devil horns up beside Matt Murdock, because they know who he is.
That was great.
And he can't tell, he has no idea, so it's really funny. And definitely kind of continuing the 3-way battle between he, the Shroud, and
the Owl.
So really great. I mean, Daredevil, even though once again, they renumbered, Turkey Texas Tales relaunch, but it's just the continuation of the great story that's has been told for going on, I guess, 3 years now. And then my last Marvel book, She-Hulk number 5. Once again, man, really loving Charles Soule. Can really do no wrong on the books that I read by Charles Soule. It's awesome. She-Hulk is like so entertaining in these books. She's great. There was actually a She-Hulk controversy not too long ago where
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, what's his name?
The guy that's a famous writer.
Yeah, they did
David Goyer.
David Goyer. They did a podcast where they started talking about characters.
Stupid.
And it was kind of stupid, a thing that you knew would get in trouble. It was also a thing I think they took out of context. Or
it was like a throwaway comment
all he
went too
said,
far.
All he really said was that he felt like early She-Hulk was made just as a masturbatory fantasy for the Hulk. He didn't say that's what I think she is. He said he thought that was the intent of the writers, and it became this big thing. But he also, in the interview, way more to me like bummed out than that was he kind of told that he didn't understand Martian Manhunter and that he wouldn't be popping up because he thought he was dumb.
And it doesn't matter because he's not writing it. Charlie Soule's writing it and knocking it out of the park. So fuck it.
Yeah, so the comics, the movies, whatever. But that's
let him keep writing good movies and leave the comics to people more capable of understanding what She-Hulk's about. But this was great. We had different artists on this one, and it was still good. It's Ron Wimberly. I have to definitely say that the art is not as good as it has been. The She-Hulk is drawn like quite differently, actually, but still enjoyable. Just like I said, just not as good as it's been. But it's really good. A bunch of different crazy things going on. Basically, in this issue, the She-Hulk, you find out that a bunch of people have been infected with something around her, where people are kind of going nuts and attacking her and everybody in her office and all sorts of crazy stuff. And she's got to deal with it. But it's really good. It's another, it goes right along with Hawkeye. It's, another great Marvel kind of day in the life book, Yeah.
But it's more of a combo. You do get to see her as She-Hulk a lot, but it's a combination of her as She-Hulk and, just her everyday life. So,
nice.
Great book. Recommended. Also, one of the very few, the proud, the $2.99 Marvel books.
Yeah, there's a very small percentage of them.
Oh, yeah, there are.
All right, well, Todd, you going next, or am I?
Sure, I'll go ahead and knock my three semi-Marvels out. Standard Marvel continuity, Amazing Spider-Man number 1.2. It's a kind of a three-part story that takes place in early Spider-Man continuity, kind of like Kurt Busiek's Untold Tales of Spider-Man, which I love. It goes back to the old Stan Lee, Steve Ditko storyline without just turning over the apple cart and saying that didn't happen. It's working within the confines of that, introducing a new villain, the Clash, who's like a sound-based villain, inspired by Spider-Man's TV appearances. And it has beautiful covers by Alex Ross, which I got a poster of thanks to B&M Comics.
Oh, did you?
Awesome.
Yes, I got from the first one.
What was the cost on that?
It was free. Actually, B&M, if you frequent that establishment, if you see a poster and it doesn't already have a thing attached to it, when they're done using the poster, you can have it for free.
Are you shitting me?
I'm not shitting you. I was so glad to get it. It was a beautiful
so made me kick over my beard.
Beautiful Spider-Man Alex Ross poster for free, man. Those guys are great. They knock it out of the park every time I go there. They are my non-stop comic shop, so to speak. One thing disappointed about
Dan's gonna put a cash on that.
I just fucked everything up.
you fucking.
Oh shit!
God, that was your last poster.
Yeah, you can get a free poster if by chance you get it before anybody else does. You have a pull box; they'll put your name on it. Anyway. It's a shame that some of the panels, they do reuse Steve Ditko's original artwork, and you don't see Steve Ditko's name attached to it anywhere. It's kind of shitty. It's a great comic. That's my only thing about it. It's like you gotta give credit where credit's due. If any artist redoes something, they'll say original credit Steve Ditko, something else. This guy didn't do it. Other than that, great little in-betweener story. It's like a three-parter. There'll be a 1.3 eventually. It's cool. Other than that, you got to give credit where credit is due. And Steve Ditko is the man as far as Spider-Man is concerned. Had to take it to a dark place there. I'm sorry, guys.
That's okay.
It's okay. That's how we liked it in the pub.
Continuing on, we got Marvel's sort of creator-owned imprint Icon.
AKA where Bendis does.
AKA, yeah. It's at this point, it's just Powers and the United States of Murder Incorporated #1. #2's already come out. I didn't get it yet because this book was a little less lackluster. I really prefer them on Powers. This is kind of like a secret society, mafia kind of book. I'll be interested to see where it goes from here on. The first issue was all right. There's not
okay.
no ads actually. It's just a really solid first book. But I want to see more from them because I know what they're capable of because of how strong Powers is. I just think that their creative juices are better served on Powers, just getting those issues out rather than going off on a tangent and making it kind of like so-so. Yeah, we'll see where it goes. It's not on the pull list yet. I'll probably pick up issue number 2, but who knows?
Fair enough.
Back to sort of Marvel proper. It is a Marvel licensed book. Miracle Man number 7. This is my pull for the week or month, whatever. This is the real before Watchmen. If you're interested in Alan Moore's work at all, if you've read Watchmen, this is the groundwork he's laid out prior to the Watchmen story. He takes a character loosely based off of Captain Marvel, Shazam, as he's known in the DC universe. And this is fucking an amazing book. It's been out there for a long time, but they haven't been able to reprint it because of,
Because like
bullshit.
1,000 people had a piece of the rights.
Yeah.
And Neil Gaiman finally got full rights and sold them Marvel along
And
with Angela.
Yeah. It's still under the title The Original Writer, which Marvel, as opposed to DC, has respected Alan Moore's request that he doesn't want his name attached to it. If DC releases a book, it'll say Alan Moore. Alan Moore doesn't like that shit.
Yeah, DC's decided, you're being a cunt. You
Yeah.
wrote it. We're putting your name on
Yeah.
it.
And that
fuck
may
you.
be true, but that's his wishes. And Marvel, being a true bro, has respected that. But at the same time, they're really giving the artwork its due. This is a full restoration. We've seen other reprints. This is not a reprint. They've taken the original pen and ink and rescanned it and recolored it, and it looks better than it did the day it came out. If you're interested in Miracle Man, Marvel Man, whatever you want to call it, if you're interested in this book, you've got to pick this up. I haven't said anything about this since issue 1, but this is, every time it comes out, is the priority for me. And it's like a mini trade paperback, because in the back you get like all of this bonus material, like posters and original ads from when it originally came out in the UK. And they finally, with this issue, it's gone from the original Warrior material that was just short stories that Alan Moore was doing in that book, and continuing on to Miracle Man number 6. The numbering's going to get a little weird from here on out because it's not going to be just one issue per. It's going to be like a couple issues. And I can't wait for the next one because it actually there's a preview for the cover. It's going to be a Romita Jr. cover for Marvel Man number 8. I'm sorry, Miracle Man. But whatever, I can't wait. It's fucking great. I can't wait to see where they go after Neil Gaiman's run. Hopefully, if all is right with the world, Neil Gaiman will take up the torch and continue the story of Miracle Man, or they'll be smart and continue the story and make it a... That was a strange noise. I don't know what it was.
That was sounded like a wreck.
It was like a werewolf / wreck. Anyway, Miracle Man is where it's at. So get that book.
Continuing in the Marvel Universe, back to the 616, Guardians of the Galaxy number 16, my favorite issue of this book yet. And quite interesting that it was my favorite that they split the entire team up. But,
Oh shit. See, I haven't read this since a few months back, so I'm
Since you
intrigued where it's going.
had your break of pulls.
Yeah, I had to really make some hard cuts. It's hard to cut the ones you love. I read too many Bendis books. That's the one that got cut.
Well, in this one, Peter Quill's dad, Jason of Spartax, the king of Spartax, he's crafted this plan to where each of the Guardians have been held by a different entity, essentially. Like Drax is being kidnapped by the fucking Kree, and
Is Venom on the team yet?
Venom has been captured by the Skrulls, and they've taken his
Had to
symbiote
know.
suit, and so he has no legs and a Skrull ship, and he's like, what the fuck am I going to do? And of course, one of the Skrulls makes the mistake of putting on the symbiote suit, and it fucking just kills his ass and fucking goes right back to Venom.
It likes to eat Skrulls.
And then he fucks shit up. And Drax the Destroyer is being held by the Kree, and Gamora is being held by the Badoon. Rocket Raccoon is being dissected by the Kree also. Like, this is really fucked up. But those
damn Kree, or as they call them in Marvel movies, something.
They're still Kree. They're the Skrulls that they can't call.
Actually, those were the Chitauri. That was an off branch of the Skrull race. They're actually technically Skrulls. But
anyway, it's a great issue. Whatever. Like, Peter Quill has his ultimate Han Solo moment in this issue, and like really the team. And this is where Miss Marvel.
He is beginning to look very like the movie version of him, which I like. It's pretty badass.
Yeah, they are slowly we'll draw.
And with these characters, they can do that because they're kind of new almost.
Sure, no, but
new to you.
In the last issue, we made fun of Guardians because they. And now Miss Marvel was on the cover. Miss Marvel didn't appear in the entire issue. Well, it was supposed to be this issue, I'm guessing, because this is where she shows up.
Yeah, sweet cover.
They jumped the gun on that one.
A little bit of premature Marvelation.
Miss Marvel.
But it's all good. Moving on, Uncanny X-Men number 22. X-Men and S.H.I.E.L.D. have been fighting for several issues now, and the trust just keeps deteriorating. They've been fighting.
Of course they have. It's been 6 months.
But Magneto is back from his sojourn to Madripoor.
Nice.
And who has he found but the real Dazzler, who they've had locked up and fucking stealing her blood to make mutant growth hormone. And so the fake Dazzler,
the MGH, bro,
that was working for S.H.I.E.L.D. and causing all of this chaos, Mystique, was ousted. So now this whole fight goes in a new direction, and the X-Men and S.H.I.E.L.D. can finally team up and get over there.
As much as I could die tomorrow and never read another fucking S.H.I.E.L.D. versus X-Men story ever again, it's like they really stick it up your ass. We're like, we're going to do another X-Men versus S.H.I.E.L.D. event, but Remender is going to ride it, so fuck you.
This has been great. I mean, I've got no complaints about
I like to see Dazzler come back because he's one of those old 70s Romita Jr. co-creations.
Well, Dazzler had a double shot this week in...
shit.
Left at the bottom of the pile here on accident. Deadpool.
You're about to upend your pile.
Number 30. While all this shit's going on with the fake Dazzler and the real Dazzler, in the Deadpool universe, he's fighting vampires. So what does he do? He goes back to the 70s in Time Machine and gets 70s Dazzler and brings her back to use her light power against the vampires. And it works. So, go figure.
It's fighting them Draculas.
And then Thor number 23, the final part of the Last Days of Midgard storyline, which was a good story, but not anywhere close to the level of the God Butcher. Love you, Jason Aaron. It was a great story. I like what you're trying to do with it. No
Apparently, Jason Aaron's Original Sin, another event, and I was just like, dude, fuck ever reading another Marvel.
And apparently it's awesome, yeah.
Everybody's saying it's great, so it's like,
of course.
God damn it.
I wasted fucking $500 on the Avengers versus X-Men event.
You got all the tie-ins. You had them all. You had a shoebox worth of Avengers X-Men comics.
I know. My butt still hurts. But it was a good issue and a good way to end this storyline. The particular highlight of this whole storyline was future Thor versus Galactus at the end of the universe. So, and that plays out pretty nicely, and it fucking rules. So definitely check out Jason Aaron's Thor. And then we'll end it with my pick of the week. Pick of the week! Uncanny Avengers number 21. Rick Remender, he does this thing where, he puts his characters through pure fucking immortal hell constantly. And then he gives you a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. And in true Fear Agent fashion, when you think that light at the end of the tunnel is bright, you find out it's a fucking train steamrolling to run your ass over. And that's what we found out in this issue. Yes, the Avengers saved the world, but at what cost? I'm not going to spoil it because Muji hasn't read it, but you'll know that they saved the world. Their plan worked. The big plan, that they had to try to go back in time and fix all the shit that happened. It worked. They saved the world. They saved continuity. Rogue didn't die. Fucking Scarlet Witch didn't die. Wonder Man didn't die. But they also fucked themselves in the butthole in the process.
It's a freight train coming your way.
And that's the end of this week's Getchyapulls.
Yeah. Remender actually does a good job of killing people off that he's going to bring back, and somehow you're still sad that they're dead.
It's really hard to do. The butt hurt on the internet about Rogue dying, and
Yeah.
Like, of course, you knew by the end of the storyline that she was coming back.
As soon as, well, no, you knew.
But
remember,
comic deaths don't mean anything.
You knew,
but they meant enough for the
yeah,
fucking
hurts
pissed off about
you
it.
knew 6 seconds after she died. When you turn the next
hurt.
page, like I said, he temporarily gets you. Like, you know, he kills off a road, and you're like, oh no, oh no, it's comics. I know she'll be back. Okay, next page.
But that's just a testament to how about seeing the fucking writer's storyline through to the goddamn end before you get your fucking panties in a bunch.
Yeah, or also, if you've been reading comics for more than 6 months and you think that any character is ever going to stay dead, then I would like to sell you this dollar for $1 million.
Not only did the characters not stay dead, they served the greater purpose of the story in ways that I can't describe without spoiling it for you any more than I have. So, like, it's just read the fucking whole storyline, and if it still sucks at the end, then say it sucks. But don't say it sucks in the middle. I've been guilty of it.
Yeah.
Todd's been guilty. We've all been guilty.
We've all been guilty.
All been guilty of it. But really and truly,
not as much as the internet
respect
as a whole.
A comic and to understand what they're going for and what the writer's going for, you got to see it through to the end of their story.
Unless it's like 50 issues. If you were like me and read
12, right.
Unless you were like me and read 12 issues of Superior Spider-Man and gave up on it.
You did.
And then
hard.
And then on issue 24, people were like, "Oh, it was good.
It was all good."
And then you come back to me and go, "Oh man, if you would have only spent $100 and you would have had 6 issues of good comic, then go fuck yourself and get your pulls."